Hello world, Dano here, stacking paper as always. And today, we're reviewing a big one. We're reviewing a straight banger. This is Solaris by Stanislaw Lem. The final book in the first cycle of my little book club that I'm running with my friends. This was my pick. And yes, this may be super biased, but absolutely this was the best of the bunch. This book's goated. I can't even begin to explain how much of an impact this book has had on me, especially, in retrospect. I've let this sit with me for over like a week now. And man, this book just says so much about humanity through a first contact. It's a first contact with an alien that is so beyond our comprehension that it ends up being more about humanity than the alien itself. So premise is we have a researcher going to this planet called Solaris. And this planet is mostly water, or it's not really water, it's liquid, let's say, with a bunch of little islands all around it. And it's about this guy going there to study this planet, and this water is essentially an alien life form. It has some form of consciousness that they can't quite pin down. And you get the feeling as soon as the book starts and he lands on this planet that there's a lot of lore there. And you don't realize that until the book pushes you forward. But essentially what happens is they land there, and very quickly they start seeing visitors. These are not visions, they're manifestations of people that they know. In this case, it's this guy's dead wife. And she's real, she's physical, she can interact with the world, but obviously this can't be his real wife. And there's two other characters on this research facility. They also have visitors who you never see, which is both a little disappointing, but it makes sense because you can't really understand what's going on. And the whole point is it's these guys are trying to figure out what's going on, and they're digging through this trove of research. This book has a really cool mechanic where on the Solaris Research Institute, there's a massive library that has all of the collected knowledge of all the researchers that have been studying Solaris over the decades. And our main character, Kelvin, he's just another in a long line of researchers that have come to Solaris. And it kind of shows like the buildup of knowledge. Like the first people that came didn't really know what was going on, and then they started describing things. And everyone has their own theories and hypothesis of what's going on, and it keeps building and building. But by the end of the book, you get to a point where you realize they're really not going to find an answer, And there's a really good quote in the book from one of the first character you meet, Snow. When Kelvin lands there, he doesn't think he's real. He thinks he's like a manifestation of Solaris, of the sea. But you don't realize that at the time. That's why I feel like rereading this would be like a super trip. But he thinks he's not real. And Kelvin obviously thinks the dude's just insane. He thinks he's just drunk and raving. But Snow says, like, give it some time. You'll be visited soon enough. And then, of course, he sees his dead wife. And then after that happens, he starts losing his mind, realizes it's not a vision, sends her up in a fucking space pod up into space. And after he goes through all that, Snow visits him again and goes, okay, so now I'm not crazy. Now we can have a conversation about what the fuck is going on here. And the wife returns, so he even says, Snow tells him, like, this isn't the end. You're going to see her again, and it's going to fuck you up. And what is really going on here? It's essentially the ocean is trying to communicate with these humans, but it fundamentally doesn't know how, and so it's pulling memories from their head and forming these visitors. Oh, and I totally forgot. This is silly. So the reason Calvin goes to Solaris in the first place is because he's being mentored by another researcher who was on Solaris, and he goes there to meet him. And as soon as he lands, the other guy there, Snow, tells him, oh yeah, that guy's dead. Obviously, he's distraught by this. He finds this guy's dead body, and he also finds his visitor. It's like this African woman who's just walking through the halls and is like curled up on his dead body. It's really metal. Another thing about this story is it's not only dark, it's like creepy, like straight up body horror, and kind of gives you the vibe of Alien. You know, it's isolated. It's a limited setting, which usually I hate, and I think it's really hard to do well. A perfect example is Andromeda Strain by Michael Crichton. Great premise, so fucking boring because the whole story takes place in a bunker, and the characters just aren't that interesting. What makes Solaris different is, yes, they're trapped in this institute, but it has this mechanic of the library where there's these massive like chapter chunks that give you insane amounts of exposition about, you know, like different literature that different researchers wrote. And it's actually, you can get really lost in it, and it's very dense, but it's super necessary. Like you have this chapter called The Little Apocrypha, where there's a book called The Little Apocrypha that one of the researchers, one of the early guys who comes to Solaris, wrote. And essentially one of the researchers fell into the ocean, and the ocean started mimicking things from that guy's mind. Like there's a massive like ocean baby that crawls out, and there's like gardens underneath, and they don't know what to make of it. And then other researchers come after and start, you know, giving terminology to these things like mimoids and symmetriods and asymmetriods, and the ocean can create these insane geological patterns that just defy all physics. And it's so interesting to read. There's 2 movies on this book as well that I'm gonna watch. I don't know how they're gonna explain or show any of this stuff. I don't think they will. I feel like it's more about, the movie's gonna lean more into the emotional relationships between the characters. But anyways, sidetrack. This book is just, it's relentless, because not only do you get all this crazy sci-fi like geological horror stuff, you also get insane dream sequences where, I guess, again, the ocean is trying to communicate. And I think the reason that it explains it in the book, but the reason all this stuff is happening, the visitors are appearing to these researchers, this has never happened before. It's never been documented in any of the other Solaris, or Solarists they call them, Solarists. Before he lands, they do an experiment where they irradiate the water. They send these X-rays into the water. And then after that happens, that's when these visitors start appearing. And then they also start having these crazy dreams where it's like the ocean itself is enveloping them and cloning them in his own head. And it's all very abstract, and it's an extremely not straightforward narrative, and it's very disorienting. But holy crap, it's just profound. And all of that to say, it's not even in the original language. Stanislaw Lem, he's a Polish author. He wrote this in Polish. This is a translation, and somehow it still manages to convey intense feeling and philosophy and just like what it means to be human from the perspective of the most non-human thing that you could imagine. A big criticism I have of a lot of First Contact novels, and I don't even think this is First Contact, it's so beyond that, but let's just say it is for now. A big criticism I have is that a lot of First Contact, the aliens aren't alien enough. You know, they might have tentacles, they might talk in weird language that you can't understand, but their fundamental thought processes are very human in a lot of them. This is one of the first stories I've read where the aliens are like truly alien. And by the end of the story, you kind of come to the conclusion that sometimes things are so beyond communication that there's no way to really get like a safe, concrete answer to things. And that's okay. And I think he comes to terms with that near the end of the book. Like, it's okay to not really understand, but just try to accept the experience as it comes to you. Oh, man, this book is... I want to give it a 10. I think it realistically is a 10, but it just sucks that I don't speak Polish. I'll give it like a 9.5 just to be safe. But it's a book that I definitely would like to reread sometime in the future. And I'll leave off with this really good quote that Snow says to Calvin near the end, not near the end, in the middle of the book, after he experiences his visitor phenomenon. That humans, they're not looking for something new. We're not looking for new worlds. We're not looking for like true exploration. We're just looking for a mirror. We're looking for a world where beings that are so like humanity and might have similar origins but are idealized versions. And I think that's what these visitors are. They're their idealized versions of their loved ones or whoever appears. In this case, it's his wife. There's a part in there where I said I was going to end off, but I can't stop talking about it. There's a part where he's talking to the wife, and the wife realizes that she's not his wife. She realizes that she doesn't know where she came from and she doesn't know what's going on, but clearly she's something different. And he even tells her, I know you're not my wife because I actually love you, which is a really fucked up thing to say, because I think he loved his actual wife, but clearly something happened between them. But this version of Rhea that he sees is idealized. It's a better version of her. And he realizes that, and that's why it's like, well, I need to somehow hold on. And he's trying so hard to hold on to this alien creature. But like they both come to the conclusion that just can't happen. And it's a really heartbreaking novel. By the end of it, there is very like, actually one of my buddy, one of the guys in the group said, yeah, by the end of the novel, it kind of does the whole like Eastern European nihilism, nothing else fucking matters thing. And I like kind of agree. I think it's a little more hopeful than that, but it's more of just this like acceptance of our place in this universe isn't to understand everything. It's just to be one with the experience, you know. Holy fuck, this book is good. But anyway, that's the first book club cycle completed. So the next book we're reading is Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor. I'm probably butchering her first name, but she's a pretty famous author, and this is her newest book. So this will be like the newest book by far I've read on the channel, because it came out like earlier this year, I think January. It's like metafiction. It seems like a cool premise. I'm pretty excited about it. And then I'll also be finishing the Martian Chronicles, hopefully within the next couple days, so that I can read Something Wicked This Way Comes, because I said I was going to read a fucking creepy horror-y book for October, and October's almost over, so I need to lock in. And then hopefully I'll release my Will of the Many final read-along review soon. I'm dreading it because it's just so long, but I'll get there. I promise. But yeah, until next time, take it easy.